Imagine stepping outside right now, and instead of trees, you're staring up at towering mushrooms taller than your house. Massive fungal pillars that dwarf everything around them. These aren't sci-fi creations. For about 50 million years before the first trees ever appeared, Earth was literally ruled by giant mushrooms. If vascular plants hadn't evolved when they did, we might still live in a world of bizarre fungus towers. Welcome to the Devonian period, around 400 million years ago. This was a time when the land looked nothing like today. No forests, no grass, no flowers or shrubs. The tallest plants barely reached your ankle on a good day. Mostly tiny, primitive stems and moss-like patches clinging to bare rock and thin, undeveloped soil. The atmosphere? It held far more carbon dioxide than today, creating a hot, humid greenhouse effect. Rivers and lakes existed, but they were warm and teeming with early jawless fish. Land animals? Forget mammals, reptiles, or even amphibians. The biggest creatures were millipedes, early wingless insects, and the occasional scorpion, crawling arthropods that were basically the apex predators of a very low bar. The landscape felt eerily empty. You could walk for days across misty, flat expanses, dotted with nothing taller than your knees. The silence was profound. No birdsong, no rustling leaves, just wind, distant water, and the faint scuttle of tiny life trying not to get stepped on. It was a barren, humid world. But rising from this emptiness were the true giants, Prototaxites. These weren't your average toadstools. They formed trunk-like structures up to 8 meters tall and over 1 meter wide, taller than many modern houses, thicker than a dining table. For tens of millions of years, these were the largest organisms on land, the skyscrapers of a prehistoric world. Scientists first discovered these fossils in the 1850s and had no idea what they were looking at. They resembled massive tree trunks but appeared in rocks from long before trees evolved. Confusion reigned for over a century. Some called them ancient conifers. Others suggested giant seaweed, washed inland, or even weird lichens. The name Prototaxites itself, first U, reflected early guesses that it was plant-like. Then, in the early 2000s, detailed studies changed everything. Microscopic analysis revealed interwoven tubular structures, typical of fungal architecture. No wood, no bark, no growth rings, just a matrix of tiny filaments woven together. Carbon isotope analysis showed highly variable ratios, indicating it wasn't photosynthetic like plants. Instead, it was heterotrophic, likely feeding on decaying organic matter, algae, or bacteria. For many years, this pointed strongly to a giant fungus, a massive sporophore rising from an enormous underground mycelial network. These weren't fragile mushrooms. Thin sections under the microscope show robust, interwoven tubes. That allowed the structures to stand upright for years, perhaps decades. Fossils appear on nearly every continent, showing they had global reach wherever moist, organic-rich conditions existed. Floodplains, wetlands, and early terrestrial patches. How did a decomposer grow so enormous without sunlight? That's the genius of it. While tiny early plants competed desperately for every scrap of light, Prototaxite said, "No thanks." It tapped into dead matter across vast areas via extensive underground networks, a prehistoric internet of fungal threads that could spread for significant distances, gathering and storing nutrients. In a world where resources were patchy and unpredictable, this gave it a massive advantage. It could grow slowly but steadily, hoarding energy, while everything else struggled. Its height likely served spore dispersal, launching reproductive spores higher into the air for wider wind dispersal in a still, humid world. And it had no real competition. The tallest plants were mere centimeters high. Nothing challenged its dominance. These towers weren't isolated oddities. They shaped entire micro-ecosystems. Tiny arthropods bored tunnels through them, turning the trunks into Swiss cheese-like habitats. Shelter, climate control, and even edible walls. The giants cast shadows that offered relief to small plants, and mosses from the intense sun. Their activity added moisture, and when they eventually died and decayed, they dumped massive amounts of organic matter into the soil, literally building better ground for future life. For roughly 50 million years, longer than mammals have dominated Earth, Prototaxites ruled. It was the landmark you navigated by. Head toward the giant fungus pillar, then left at the next one. They thrived in the hot, humid conditions, with no large herbivores to munch them and minimal disturbance. But nothing lasts forever in evolution. Around the middle to late Devonian, plants leveled up dramatically. Archaeopteris, one of the first true trees, emerged. These progymnosperms had real wood, deep roots, and fern-like leaves. They could grow over 20-30 meters tall, far outpacing the fungal giants in speed and stature. Once they appeared, other plants followed. Taller ferns, early seed plants. Forests began to form. Complex, layered ecosystems with canopies that blocked sunlight and roots that aggressively claimed soil resources. The underground war was brutal. Tree roots partnered with their own mycorrhizal fungi, outcompeting the older networks for nutrients. Above ground, decomposing organic matter that once fed Prototaxites became scarcer, as plants recycled it more efficiently within forests. The climate shifted too. Trees drew down CO2 and released oxygen, cooling the planet and making it less ideal for these moisture-loving giants. Wildfires, now possible in drier forest patches, could destroy decades of slow fungal growth in moments. Emerging herbivores began experimenting with living tissue. By around 360 million years ago, Prototaxites fossils grow rarer and then vanish from the record. After 50 million years of unchallenged supremacy, the giant towers were gone, replaced by the age of forests. Their loss was humanity's gain. Without those early forests, we wouldn't have the diverse ecosystems, oxygen-rich air, coal deposits, or evolutionary ladder that led from amphibians to us. Ironically, Prototaxites helped prepare the soil, through its cycles of growth and decay, setting the stage for its own successors. Today, fungi still dominate in hidden ways. The largest organism on Earth is a honey fungus in Oregon, spanning thousands of acres underground. Modern forests run on vast mycelial networks that connect trees and trade resources, the wood wide web. Prototaxites was doing something similar 400 million years ago, just on a visibly gigantic scale. We almost lived in the mushroom timeline. A few tweaks in evolution or climate, and you might be looking up at fungal pillars instead of oaks. But the trees won the height war, the resource war, and the future. Evolution doesn't reward tenure. It rewards adaptation. The mushroom skyscrapers fell, and in their shadow, the world we inhabit took root. Thanks for joining this journey into deep time. If you enjoyed it, hit like, subscribe for more prehistoric stories, and check out the next video suggested on screen. What other ancient mysteries should we explore? Let me know in the comments.